Welcome to the Fit Dad Nation podcast, forging strong fathers and raising a stronger generation. It's time to get up or shut up with your host, Steve Roy.
Hey guys, this is Steve Roy, the host of the Fit Dad Nation podcast. Welcome to the show and thank you for listening. So before I introduce today's guest, I just want to take a quick moment to invite all you dads who are listening right now, who are ready to start taking action on reclaiming your health and fitness and becoming better fathers and better men, to join our free online community. And the best way to do that right now is to apply to our free private Facebook group, which can be found at fitdadnation.com/community. So today I have with me Andy Storch. He's somebody that I actually met a couple of years ago through another dad's group that we're both a part of. And over time, I started to notice how much this guy was getting done each day. And come to find out, he's a business owner, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. He actually has two different shows, the Talent Development Hot Seat and the Andy Storch Show. He's a dad of two, and I'll call him a chronic overachiever. I mean, this guy just exudes energy and passion. He's always smiling. He's always creating content and giving. And he's inspired me on more than one occasion. So, Andy, thank you so much for being here.
Steve, thank you so much. I wish you could see me right now. We turned our cameras off, but I am dancing over here as you are introducing me and talking about the energy. It's giving me more energy. And I love to try to bring that energy to every interview and also, transmit that out to anybody listening, because we want to inspire people to live a better life. And it's awesome to be on your show, because I interviewed you on my original podcast about entrepreneurship a year and a half ago. We were talking about that.
Sure.
And it's so cool to reconnect and hear what you're doing and how you're helping and inspiring people. And I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So, listening to you right now, I mean, obviously you can hear the energy, and I can tell you guys from firsthand experience, and I've read over many of Andy's posts and videos over the course of a few years. This guy's the real deal. This isn't an act for a podcast. I mean, this guy is legitimately on fire all the time. So I want to hear about your story. I mean, like how you got started with all this and how you ended up. Again, I'm going to call you just this overachiever. I mean, you're making me look like a lazy piece of shit because you just get so much done. It's crazy. And so I want to hear your story.
Oh, well, where do you want to go? How far do you want to go back?
Oh, surprise me.
All right. Well, I'll give you the gist from the beginning is that I grew up here in Orlando, Florida, where I live now. I left for a while and I'm back. My parents were teachers, and I played some sports growing up. They were my parents were all about academics, and I think the only thing they really cared about was me getting good grades and getting into college and getting a good job. And so I did that. I think that I've reflected on this. I've gone on some other fitness podcasts, like why I'm so into health and fitness. And I think one of the reasons is that my parents were not big into it, but they definitely exercised pretty regularly. My dad played a lot of racquetball, and my mom always took me with her to jazzercise class every week, which I'm surprised to see sometimes that's still around, actually.
Really?
But, I went to college, University of Florida. I moved to California. And I tried to get into entrepreneurship because I read a book, I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which is the entree point for many people into entrepreneurship, and thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I got involved in some startups that nothing worked, and then eventually went into insurance. I got my MBA, and then I found a job in consulting doing what I love, which is a lot more project-based work, getting up in front of the room, facilitating workshops, and I got to travel all over the world. And I started to really discover my strengths. And I think that's an important part of the journey for me and for a lot of people, is when you start to discover the things that you're good at and the things that you're not good at. And that allows you to move more towards what fulfills you in your work and in your life. And I also discovered that I was pretty good at building relationships and sales. Not all of sales, and I'm still learning all the time and trying to get better at sales. You and I were talking about that before we started recording, but that I'm very good at networking and building relationships and, bringing in opportunities. And so I moved into a sales role, and I had a job with this really great consulting company. And, I was married for, several years and had one daughter and another baby on the way. This was, about 4 years ago. And, I think by all, looking in, everything looked great, 6-figure salary and family and everything. But I was not very happy. I was not very fulfilled with my life and my career. And I didn't know where things were going. And I felt this pull back towards entrepreneurship. And so the big pivot point for me in making big changes was when I got into personal development. And for me, that moment was when I heard a man named Hal Elrod on another podcast. And he was talking about his book called The Miracle Morning. And Steve, I think you're familiar with this book, right? And Hal? Yep. Yeah. So I heard him and I just knew I had to go out and get that book. And I did. And I read it right away and started practicing The Miracle Morning. For anybody not familiar, it's all about getting up earlier and starting your day more intentionally with a set of things that Hal calls his savers, and an intentional morning routine that includes things like meditation, affirmations, visualization, reading, writing, and exercise. And I started doing that every day and really figuring out what I'm good at, what I enjoy, what I want to do with my life, and that I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship. And I also took a chance later that year and went to Hal Elrod's conference in San Diego called the Best Year Ever event. It's the first time I ever really paid money out of my pocket to go to a personal development type conference versus just going to the boring work conferences that your company makes you go to, right? Mm-hmm. And I had a blast. I met some amazing people there, including a guy named Tuan Nguyen, who you might be familiar with. He turned me on to the Dad Edge, which is where you and I connected. And I started to get really involved in the dads group there. And a big thing that I discovered along the way is that, it's important to really get to know yourself and your strengths and what you enjoy doing. Like I mentioned, it's also so important to connect with other people who are ambitious, who are trying to do the things that you want to do. So whether that's being a great father, or it's, big goals that you have with your business or work, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, or getting fit, right? That's why it's so great to join the community that you created, Steve, because you're bringing people together to help them get healthier and get more fit. And so I started joining communities like that and really meeting great people like you. And that kept fueling the fire for me. I eventually was able to leave my job to become an independent consultant. And I started 3 podcasts. I have 2 now. And started connecting with people, going to more conferences. And I don't know, my life just exploded from that point. And I've just had so many great things going on. But it all goes back to, discovering, getting into personal development, starting to read and learn more, connecting more with a lot of people, and just trying to get the absolute most out of life, and then building enough confidence to share more of that to inspire others. So that's why I say my mission now is to get the absolute most out of life and to inspire other people to do the same.
Yeah, man. It's working. I mean, you're obviously familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, and he talks about hustle a lot. And so, I see you hustling, but it doesn't seem that you're sacrificing, which a lot of people end up doing, is sacrificing family time. You're always posting with you're doing awesome adventures and experiences with your kids. Yeah. So it's not like you've gone dark and went into this shell and you're just all business. It doesn't seem like that at all. But yet at the same time, we've got a massive amount of stuff happening. And so what I really wanted to talk to you about today really is, how do you make it all work? Because, a lot of the guys in the community are kind of, I'll say maybe stuck in a rut, kind of grinding out the day to day. And it's hard to get started sometimes. And if you don't have an exact plan, it's easy to just put it off, and 1 year turns into 10 years. Yep. And so, I want to hear about like the things that you do. And you mentioned the book, which I wanted to ask you about too. And is, how are you getting so much done? But, how do you get in that first step to just start getting after it and then sticking with it?
Yeah, for me, it goes back to the idea of living life intentionally, setting the intention of here is what I want to accomplish. Here's how I want to live my life. And then trying to live in alignment with that. Now, I'm not perfect. I get easily distracted by things. Time management is a big part. But one thing I like to talk about, along with the idea of living intentionally, is that life is all about trade-offs, because we all have the same amount of time. We all have 168 hours in the week. We get to spend it however we want. Some of us have to work more than others, or get to work more than others. Some of us have more family demands than others, maybe children with special needs, whatever it is. Some of us have spouses that can help. Some of us don't. Some of us are very ambitious with our business and some of us are not. We all have different situations. So number one, you got to stop comparing to other people and just figure out what's best for you. And number two is there are trade-offs to everything. So you mentioned like I do all this stuff, right? And I get a lot of stuff done for work, but I like to think that I do kind of hustle, but family is also very important to me. So I don't really work more than say 40 hours a week because I have family dinner with my wife and kids every evening. I spend almost the whole weekend with my kids all the time doing fun stuff. I rarely work on the weekends. And so that means I have to be very intentional and efficient with the time that I have for work during the week. And so I avoid other things that I deem to be low value for me. I don't watch very much TV. I don't watch any sports. And by the way, I know your audience is a bunch of dads, guys, that a lot of us grew up watching sports. I was a huge sports fan growing up. Absolutely spent all my time watching sports. Going into my 20s when I moved to LA, I was a big baseball fan. I got season tickets to LA Dodgers. I used to go to like 20 games a year and watch the rest of it on TV. And I think back to that time and what a waste it was because I don't remember any of those games. Like maybe I got a little bit of enjoyment out of that. But can you imagine if I had been spending that time, working on a business or learning about something? And again, obviously that was a phase of my life. I don't have any regrets. I can't take that back. And I don't have any judgment for people that like to relax and watch some sports at the end of the day or some Netflix. But every time you do, it's a trade-off because it means you're not doing something else. You're not going to the gym or you're not spending time with your family. You're not working in your business, whatever it is. So I try to be really focused and efficient with how I'm spending my time because there's only so much of it and I want to get the absolute most out of things. And the other thing that I'll say is that I'm very ambitious. I have big goals. I have big dreams, things that I want to achieve. Not everybody's necessarily going to be that way. You've got to figure out what is important to you. If it's, hey, I've got a cool job. I don't care that much about moving up or building a big business. I just want to make sure that I'm secure and I'm healthy and I'm spending time with my family. Like, cool. Set your boundaries with that. Map out how and where you're going to be spending time with your family and how and where you're going to be getting to the gym, and then connect everything back to your purpose. And a lot of people don't think about this, but think about your purpose, your why. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? What's most important to you? And that's the thing that's oftentimes going to help people get through, I think, those challenges. I mean, Steve, you've been around, the fitness community and helping people get in shape a lot longer than I have. But like when I'm tired and I don't feel like going to the gym, the thing that often drives me is I think, well, I have this long-term goal of like being healthy for all of my life, to being there for my kids. And even though I'm feeling lazy in this moment, I know that the investment that I make in going to the gym now is going to pay off long-term. And so then I get up off my butt and I go. Not always, but most of the time I do. And so, for me, I think doing all these things, at least like trying all this stuff, doing things, taking action all the time, comes back to, what are the vision and goals, connecting to my why, my purpose, and then trying to be really efficient with my time, remembering all the trade-offs that if I'm spending time doing one thing, I'm not spending time and doing another thing. And so those things are always on my mind. And then my overall mission of just getting the most out of life. Again, that's me. And not everybody's going to be that way. I'm kind of crazy that way, but I want to get the most out of life. So I don't want to waste any time.
Yeah, it's well said. I mean, and you said something pretty powerful a few minutes ago about living intentionally. When you think about it, you take a second to actually think about those words. How often, are we sitting down quietly, and I'm terrible at this, but no distractions, no phone, no computer, no nothing.
Yeah.
For just a block of even 10 minutes. To me, that's a lifetime. But thinking about what you just said, living intentionally, like that's a very powerful phrase because, we're basically, and we'll talk about this too, is we're constantly in reactive mode. Like It's just the phone rings. Oh, this email just came through. I've got to hit this deadline. It's constantly reactive. And so, I want to talk more about, the proactive, like how to be more proactive, and even carving some time aside, because I've heard so many people talk about the tremendous power behind even just sitting still or meditating. In your case, I know you do a lot of that,
Yeah.
But I personally, and I'm not alone, find it extremely challenging to even consider doing that because like my mind, I mean, you've heard this a million times, but your mind is just going. And I did a float tank once, like one of those deprivation float tanks. And I had to leave it because it was so uncomfortable for me. It wasn't the silence or the blackness. It was sitting still. I just couldn't sit still.
Yeah.
You know, it was weird. And so I got up and I got on my phone, I turned the light on and took a shower and got out of there. But I was like, how do people do this? Like, how do people just sit and calm their mind and meditate? So maybe we'll start there because I know you've spent a lot of time, you've been super consistent with it too, about just a short meditation practice.
Yeah, it is so hard, right? And it's so funny because you think about life, you know, only 20, 25 years ago before everybody had a phone in their hand. And, you know, you would have a lot of quiet time, not a ton, but, you know, you would have, and going back even further, people always had that time where they were kind of alone with their thoughts. And I'm not the best at this, but I do meditate daily. I see meditation as exercise for the brain. I think it's equally as important as any exercise you do for your body, for your health. And so I try to keep a consistent practice. I started when I discovered the Miracle Morning 3 years ago, and I've been meditating every day since then. And my current streak is like 50 days or something like that. But it's 10 minutes a day. It's not a ton. I mean, there are some very serious, you know, mindfulness practitioners out there who are doing 30, 60 minutes a day. And I haven't really gotten too much into that. But I do think it's really important to quiet the mind for at least a little bit of time each day. It's very good for, you know, building your brain strength, for building your mindfulness. And it allows you to be more patient. At least for me, allows me to be more patient and less reactive to things throughout the rest of the day and the rest of the week. And I'm talking about that email that comes in from your client or your boss that tells you to do something you don't want to do. And then we have that angry reaction, or someone cuts you off in traffic. Or the biggest thing, the area where it's been most helpful for me is in parenting. I'm talking about the tantrums, right, from our kids, you know, especially toddlers. My kids are 3 and 5. There's constantly tantrums when they don't get the things that they want. And my ability to calmly deal with them and not overreact, I credit 100% to my meditation practice, because I'm just become more mindfully aware of things, and that a lot of little things don't matter as much as we think they do in the moment, and that we get to really control how we act and how we react in life. Like, we can't control all the things that happen or all the things that happen around us or to us, but we can control our reaction. We can control our mindset and how we feel about things. And so when I talk about living intentionally, I'm talking about setting your intention of how you want to live your life and living in alignment with that. And along with that, taking full ownership, responsibility for your life. I see so many people play victim, right? My boss did this to me. My spouse did that to me. The president did this to me. You know, politicians did that to me. You know, I can't do this because of the economy or whatever it is. And it's going to start ramping up. You and I are recording this in summer of 2019. There's a big another presidential election coming up in fall of 2020. And we're going to see more and more and more arguing, and my life is bad or good because of this. And it's just not true, especially if you live in America, where we really do have full, you know, independence and control and freedom. Not everybody. There are certainly some things that could be improved. But I just kind of try to ignore all of that, because in my mind, it doesn't really affect me very much. I want to take full responsibility for my life. I get to do all the things that I get to do. And if there's something I'm not happy about, can I change it? And if I can't change it, then just deal with it, because there's not much point in, you know, complaining. And granted, my life is very good right now. I don't have that much to complain about. I have my challenges, I have my strengths, and I have my weaknesses. And certainly, like I said earlier, like, there are a lot of people with much bigger problems and challenges than me, but I don't think complaining ever really helped anybody. And people who spend time being a victim of, you know, oh, I'm out of shape because my parents didn't bring me up the right way, or I don't have time to make it to the gym. I hear that one all the time. You know, whatever it is that you have a dream of, I want to get healthier, or I'd love to start a side business, but I don't really have time. I think that a lot of those people, it might be true sometimes. A lot of times it's just not true, because people are not being thoughtful about how and where they're spending their time, because yeah, I don't really have time, but oh yeah, I do have to, because I watched, 2 hours of Netflix last night, or yeah, the NBA finals are coming. Of course I have to watch all the games, right? Or, I got to go out with my buddies, or whatever it is that you're spending your time on. No judgment, spend your time however you want, but just take full ownership of that and believe that you are doing it because you want to do it, not because other people want to do it. And the last thing I'll say on this, I think a lot of people live their lives for other people, for their parents, for their friends, for their coworkers, to impress people on social media. And I try to fight against that. I want to live my life for me. And some of it is to impress other people. Quite frankly, sometimes my motivation is to go to the gym so I can post about it, just so you'll see it, Steve.
Sure.
But,
yeah,
but whatever it is that gets you there. But I do it because I want to live my life that way. And I believe that I'm living my life intentionally. And I try not to let fear or anything else hold me back from those things. And we can get into that too. But the whole idea of living intentionally is just set that intention, take ownership of your life and what, who you want to be and what you want to accomplish, and stop living life for other people or playing a victim. Yeah.
I mean, and I have people in my life that live in victim mode, and it's extremely frustrating. And one thing I talk about over and over with my community is, exactly what you said. Take responsibility. I've heard, and over the last 5 years running the Fit Dad Nation, I've run surveys and polls and stuff like that within different groups. And I'm sure I have at least 3,000 or 4,000 responses from simple questions like, what's your biggest struggle? And I've seen time and time again, excuse after excuse. I don't have enough time, stuff like that. That comes up all the time. And I just look at it and say, yeah, is there a chance that that's actually true? Sure. But in most cases, like you said, it's a matter of priorities. You're going to spend your time doing something else. You'd rather watch Netflix. That's fine. I said, I don't care. That's your decision. But stop telling me you don't have time, because there are people far busier than you and me that make time every day for their health.
There are like big company executives who work 67 hours a week and are like training for marathons and triathlon. I don't even know how they do it, but people make time. So I love what you said there. And I just want to add a challenge to people. Something that I've challenged myself with that has helped a lot is that whenever you catch yourself saying, I can't do something, or I don't have time to do something, change it to, I chose to do this instead. I prioritized that. I didn't go to the gym yesterday because I chose to X whatever you did. And if you start getting into the habit of that, it forces you to, admit to yourself how you're choosing to live your life. And then you can decide if you want to keep doing that or not. But it's about really being honest with yourself. And then you can start being honest with others too, which sometimes can be hurtful. You have to pick and choose, but I love the oh, sorry, I didn't come to your party. I had to go do this other thing. But no, that's not really true. You chose to do this other thing, and therefore you didn't come to the party. It's about being honest.
Yeah, that's the problem right there, though. You actually have to say those words and mean them to take responsibility. Right. So, and I'll just say this, Gary Vaynerchuk, is probably one of the busiest guys that we know. The guy is he's 24/7, right? Yep. But he works out every single day. And I know this because Jordan Syatt, who had him on the show a while back, I'm in part of a couple of his mastermind groups. Great guy, but he worked exclusively as Gary's coach for a couple of years. He just stopped. But he traveled with him around the world, literally. But he trained him 7 days a week. And this guy, never stops. Wow. Gary never stops. Yet he carved out whatever it was, 30 minutes or an hour, whatever it was, to exercise, and he's made huge progress. And it's like, there's nobody listening to this show is probably as busy as Gary, but it's a priority for him.
10, 15, 20 businesses or something, but he makes the time because it's a priority for him.
Oh yeah.
But he makes the time because it's a priority. And something else you added there too, he has a trainer, right?
Yep.
And I think it's so important to realize that some areas of our lives, we're good at, we're naturally just going to go do, and other areas we're not. I don't need that much motivation personally to go to the gym. I get myself there, right? Other people need that motivation, but I need some accountability in other areas. That's why I'm in 2 mastermind groups and I have coaches and things like that. And if you have trouble getting to the gym, hire a trainer. Gary has a trainer. I bet it's not really to teach him how to be good at working out. It's about accountability for him, I'm sure. Because he can easily get lost in all the work he has. But if you have a trainer who's you told him that you'd meet him there at 3:00, then you got to be there. And so it's about accountability. And a lot of times when we have big goals and dreams, the first step is setting that goal and saying, yeah, I want to work out 5 days a week, or I want to start a podcast, or I want to start this community, or I want to get a new job. The second, the first step is setting that intention and writing that goal down. The next step is telling somebody, asking for help, hiring a coach, hiring a trainer, getting accountability. And it costs some money. And sometimes you think to yourself, why am I paying money? Like, I know how to do this on my own. But you don't. If you did, you would be doing it already. You're not. Yep. So pay the money, get the coach, get the accountability, get the trainer, and your chances of success go way up.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, the accountability piece, because I've been one-on-one coaching for actually been 22 years total,
Wow.
and most of the stuff I've done has been one-on-one stuff. But when I started Fit Dad Nation, I did start coaching one-on-one, but then I started forming these groups and challenge groups, and we'll call them mini masterminds. And then I saw the productivity and the results go through the roof, and I'm like, holy shit, there's something to this. And so now everything that I do is group-based. And you've been part of a couple different groups. We met in the Dad's Edge, which is run by Larry Hagner, who's got a fantastic group program.
Definitely.
You've been part of his elite masterminds. You've run masterminds, with him. In the accountability piece, again, like most of us, let's look at fitness. We know how to eat healthy, right? There isn't a person on this earth that doesn't know how to eat healthy. Yes, you could tweak some things. Yes, you could. But anyway, it comes down to not the details of, hey, here's what to do, here's what to eat, here's the exercise to do. It's showing up, right? Because you've got 100, 500, 1,000, whatever it is, other people counting on you, and you're counting on them, and you show up. And so I want to hear about your experiences in these groups, and being part of one, but also running them, and how it affects results at the end of the day, being part of something like that.
It's so important. I mean, it's been such a big factor in my own growth and how I've gotten to where I am. I think back of how I really started finding my voice and connecting with so many people and building all the stuff I'm building now. It all goes back to my first podcast I started. And that podcast started because I joined a mastermind group in the Dad Edge and Larry Hagner's community. And right when we started the group, he said, everybody has to set a big 90-day goal, and I'm going to hold you accountable. And I was like, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. I'll put that as my goal. And then when I put that goal down and I had 10 guys that I was meeting with every week and, giving them progress updates, I had to go achieve it. I'm pretty competitive. I didn't want to let those guys down. And so, I made progress every week, and I launched that podcast, and I'm still podcasting today. It's been over 3 years since I set that goal. And it was because I had the accountability of that group. I've seen like you said, I've been involved in mastermind groups. I've run mastermind groups. I'm in a couple groups for mastermind groups for sales and entrepreneurship. And I see how people pump each other up. They share wins and challenges. They've got that accountability. Someone says, I'm thinking about doing, X. I'm thinking about starting a podcast. I'm thinking about starting a business. I'm thinking about starting a new fitness routine. And you think about the group of friends, your old group of friends, we all have them, right? That are negative and aren't not very supportive, and how they would bring you down and be like, oh, you'll never achieve that. You failed at everything else you did in the past, right? Versus this new group of friends that you pay for that are in an accountability group or a mastermind group, that when you say, I'm thinking about doing X, everyone goes, yeah, you need to do that, and we're going to hold you accountable. Now all of a sudden you have this push, to get that thing started, to do that thing. I'm in a mastermind group right now with a great guy named Mike who runs a travel agency. And he's been thinking about starting a podcast, and we're like, no, you need to do this, and we want you to have this done by next week. And all of a sudden, he's got 10 interviews booked. And I don't know what would happen, but my guess is that idea would be rattling around in his head for the next 10 years, and it would never, he would never get around to it because he's so busy running his business. But when he has like these 10 guys that he really looks up to and connects with, going, hey man, we really want to see you start this podcast. Like, when are you going to get this done? Now he has some accountability. He basically has a boss around it that's, encouraging him. And so he's going out and taking action. He's going to get started. And I think the same is true. If you want to get in better shape, you join a group of people who are either, their standard is working out all the time and being in good shape, or who are also trying to get in good shape, get healthier. And you share with each other all the time and challenge each other and support each other. And that pushes people. I mean, that's human psychology. It's human nature, right? We kind of, Tony Robbins says we rise to the level of the peers that we surround ourselves with. And it's true. If you surround yourself with losers, you're going to be one. And if you surround yourself with really ambitious people who want to live life to the fullest, to be healthy, whatever it is, you're going to start modeling their behavior. And so choosing who you surround yourself with, finding a coach, a trainer, especially a mastermind group or, a group program like what you run, for me has been incredibly helpful. And I've seen how much it helps other people. I just think it's so important, and it's often not as expensive as one-on-one coaching, right?
Yep.
And you get a lot of the benefits. Sometimes you give more benefits because you get coaching and you build relationships with the other people in the group. I've made so many great lifelong friends from the groups that I've joined, and all of them started off online, right? In Facebook or other platforms. And then I took them to the next level. They've become real life friends. I've met up with people at conferences and traveled and connected. And it's just made my life so much better, so much more fulfilling. And I'm just so grateful that I've had that experience.
Yeah, for sure. And you said something about the cost. And I think that's a significant thing, because I've got, plenty of free groups, and it's without fail, once somebody puts a little bit of skin in the game, just a little bit of money, the commitment level goes way up. And
dude, but there's no skin in the game. Like people just don't take action. I'm trying to get better. I'm really do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to get better there. And I follow this couple that makes these amazing videos, and they tried to sell me on this program, and I didn't buy it. And then they just invited me to join some of their calls for free, and I don't even go because I don't pay. It's amazing. I see it with myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's crazy, though. I mean, I honestly wish it wasn't the case, because, we talked about this before we started recording, but I don't enjoy the sales process. I don't like taking money from people regardless of the value that I'm giving. It's just not something I like to do. But it's true. I mean, I've got, a ton of guys in one of my groups, and the actions, it's crazy how little action is being taken because it's free. But, when they join one of my challenges or one of my programs or my inner circle, I mean, the inner circle group is much smaller than one of my other private Facebook groups, and it's probably 30 times more active because guys are actually paying to be there, and it's crazy. And it's awesome. I mean, that's what it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. To the fitness thing, I was in a group, a subgroup within the other dad's group that I was in a while back, and we started this fitness challenge. Everybody had to post when they worked out. I mean, there were guys that were not normally going to the gym that all of a sudden are there 3-4 days a week. I ramped up from 5-6 days to 7 days a week. At one point, I think I worked out like 50 days in a row just because I wanted to post and show them like, hey, I'm at the gym again, right? I didn't want to let anybody down. And it was all about that accountability, right? It's all about like that connection. And it's almost like impressing your friends or your peers, but like you don't want to let them down, and maybe you want to impress them too. But that's great. That's how we raise each other up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes to mind, there's a guy in one of Larry's group. John Bauer. I've spoken to him a few times, and he was an attorney, a busy dad, and he just, like you said, he put his ass on the line. And I know he joined some paid groups, and he wanted to get fit. And next thing I know, this guy is not only in the gym every day lifting heavy weights, but he's got his own fitness consulting business now as well.
Yeah, he's a monster. Power.
I mean, it's awesome to see that, and that's it. That's the power. And he's got I don't know how many thousands of guys are in that group now, but he's got so many guys behind him now, cheering him on, and now that's his life now. That's what he wanted. It's awesome. I love to see that stuff.
Yeah,
love it. So I want to talk to you about something else too. And you had you said you had a nice job before this, and then you branched out on your own and became an entrepreneur. This is something I feel really, really strongly about, and it's pursuing your passions. And I'd like to hear your take on how important is it to, first of all, figure out what it is that you're truly passionate about. And then number two, actually getting after it, like with everything you've got and until it becomes, your reality.
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. I hear so many different answers on this. I think first of all, I think it is really important to figure out, spend some time figuring out, what am I good at? What do I really enjoy? What are my passions? Whatever you want to call it. And this goes back to your earlier question about, spending time quietly. This is something that, again, I don't think we fully even dove into that topic. But most people don't do this. We're all in reaction mode. We've got things vying for our attention all the time, text, social media, television, kids, whatever it is. And it's so important to spend a little bit of that space. That's why I love that Miracle Morning routine. And I do have quiet time every morning where I read a book. I have my journal. I take a walk around the block every morning with a cup of coffee and no phone. And it's good thinking time for me. And I come up with a lot of great ideas there. And I've also, analyzed myself and really like started to realize what a lot of my strengths are, what the things that I really enjoy doing. For instance, podcasting. I love talking to people, sharing my message. I love asking questions and hearing people's stories and getting value out of them and sharing that with other people. But then you also decide, is that something that I want to monetize and turn into a business? Can I? And what help do I need? Or is it something that I just want to be a hobby for right now, right? You don't have to monetize your passions, but I think we all have different strengths and we all can accomplish a lot more when we are working in what Gay Hendricks called the zone of genius. So a great book on this is called The Big Leap by Dr. Gay Hendricks. And he has a second book after that called The Joy of Genius. They're excellent books. And I've had him on my podcast and he's just a fantastic man. And he talks about living life in your zone of genius, which means there are things that you're not good at. There are things that you're pretty good at, but you don't really enjoy. There are things that you're really good at that you kind of enjoy. And then there's your zone of genius, the things that you're excellent at. Time seems to just fly by when you're doing those things, whatever it is. And that, if you're trying to build a business and that's part of your business, you want to try to spend the most time in that zone of genius, doing the things that you really love and you enjoy. And so how do you get to doing those things? Well, you figure out, is that part of my business? Is there a business I can build around this? Can I outsource or delegate some of those other things that I don't want to do? And so for me, I'm not good at the administrative, detail-oriented stuff. I don't like doing those things. I had to do that stuff for a while, or I chose to do that stuff for a while. When I started my first podcast, I did all my own editing and production and everything because I didn't think I could afford to outsource that. But eventually I got a sponsor and I got a podcast editor. And this year I hired my first virtual assistant and I just took her from part-time to full-time to handle a lot of detailed stuff that I don't want to do myself. And frankly, with all the things I'm doing, I don't have time to do. So, Steve, you see me putting all this content out. And part of the reason I'm able to do that now is because I also have this virtual assistant who's helping me repurpose things and, create image cards and stuff to go with my podcast and all that stuff. And it's amazing how little, you can outsource some of this stuff and pay an assistant. And if one of the exercises I've seen many times I've done myself is, how much is your time actually worth? And if you're able to outsource and delegate the things you're not good at, can you spend more time doing the things that you are good at, that you enjoy? And might that even make you more money? And that's in the place where I am right now, trying to do that. But, going back to your original question, I think I'm not an expert on this, but I think it requires some introspection of figuring out what are the things that you enjoy and that you're really good at. It requires, I think, some networking and some conversations with your friends, your peers, your colleagues around you to ask like, hey, what am I good at? What do you see me being good at, not good at? Where do you see me maybe starting a business or running a business? And you might be surprised with what you hear, because what I've found in not only doing personal development work, but I also run leadership development programs for big companies and do some coaching as well. One of the big things I've learned is that people are often blind to their own strengths. They often don't know what they're really good at, and their friends around them do know what they're good at, and maybe they haven't told them, but it might be like, Steve, you are so good at motivating people, at connecting people, getting people to work out, and you might want to think about starting a podcast and a business and a community around this, and maybe you never even saw it, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe you need a little bit extra push from friends or accountability or a coach to get you to start charging more for that stuff, right, Steve, to build a business around it. Mm-hmm. But I've been around people that, I've had people tell me about strengths that I wasn't really aware of until I started getting that feedback and hearing that from people and realizing, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. Maybe I could even make a business around this, whatever it is. And then one of the example I like to give of that is I did this exercise in a company, the consulting company I used to work for. we did this exercise called Discovering Your Native Genius, which is from a book called Multipliers by Liz Weissman. And we sat in a group of 4 people and we took turns telling each other what we thought the person's native genius was, or really their superpower. And it was such an enlightening experience because you realize that other people perceive the things that you're good at way better than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a guy in that group that we all went around and every single person said, you are a fantastic storyteller. Every time you try to make a point with something, you're always telling these great stories. And he had this like look of shock on his face. Like, really? I had no idea. He didn't even know he was doing it. But everyone around him knew that he was a great storyteller. So can he build a business around that? I don't know. But he could definitely build it into more of what he was doing as a consultant and a salesperson. Just like, I feel like I'm just trying stuff all the time. I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I get on Skype with you and we're recording this interview and you're giving me all these affirmations about all the great content I'm putting out there and how I'm inspiring you and other people. And I keep hearing that. And so I'm starting to really embrace it and say, okay, this is who I am. I am really good at this. Can I build a business around this? Or is this just a hobby? And then that's the decision you have to make. And then you have to start putting a real effort into pursuing it, setting goals, maybe hiring a coach, joining a mastermind group, whatever it is to help you. Because if we don't know how to do it, we often need to get that help.
Yeah. And that book you mentioned reminds me of a very similar book that I read called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. So this was a few years ago after I left my job. I was working on a different website. It was a personal growth website and I had been trying to basically force a business into it. I had a really engaged community. I had lots of comments. I had a lot of traffic to it. I loved it. It was a very engaged community. And I wrote a lot, but I didn't have a business for it. And so I was just constantly beating my head against the wall. And I read this book and it says something very similar to what you said that book was talking about was, not only do you have to find something that, you obviously have a passion for, but that you're exceptional at. And, that's where you start. You don't try to, get really good at playing the guitar if you have zero musical abilities, right? You're probably going to struggle. So instead, find your strengths. And that's when I decided to actually switch gears and turn the Fit Dad Nation into a business. And I actually stopped working with that other site altogether.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so that was the big shift for me. So that's a very important point. Don't try to recreate the wheel. I mean, if you suck at networking, or talking to people, choose something else. I mean, you can get good at it, sure. But, again, you have natural abilities and you need to play into those.
Yeah. And what is your strength and what do you want to be a business? I mean, another example of that I think in my own life is that, you mentioned I work out a lot and I post about it often because I want to help inspire other people. And there was a period, I remember a couple of years ago where a mentor and coach of mine kept suggesting to me, I think fitness is your thing. I think you need to start a business around that. And I resisted that because I knew that while I do enjoy going to the gym and I enjoy posting about it to inspire other people, that I'm not an expert. I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not someone I don't think I'm the person that really gets other people to work out or built a business around that and makes money from it. And so I resisted that. And I'm glad I did because I don't think that's my thing. If you want to get in shape, you join Steve Roy's group, right? You join the Fit Dad Nation. It's not my thing, but it's something I enjoy doing. Now, on the other hand, I had an opportunity when I left my job to take advantage of the experience I had in talent development, in working with companies and selling training and development, that kind of thing. And so I started working those connections. I started a podcast in that area, discovered that I have a real strength there, and I actually built a passion around that. And when I started doing it, I thought that it was just something that, hey, I have experience here. I should probably give this a shot. And then the more I talked to people and learned and got really into it, I started to build more enthusiasm and a passion around it. And now I've got this network and I'm building a community in the podcast and I'm starting a conference, my first conference later this year in November for talent development professionals. And it's all growing out of that wasn't even it wasn't even really a passion to begin with, but it's turning into that. And it was a lot more. For me, there was a much clearer path to monetizing it, turning into a real business than maybe me doing something in fitness or personal development where there are just, thousands and thousands of people doing similar stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And along the same conversation here about your fitness level. So, we've already established that you're a hustler, right? You're a busy guy, and I've seen videos of you like waiting for an airplane in an airport knocking out push-ups, right? You just find time to get it done. And so, I mean, you're almost 40, right? You're a 39-year-old guy. You've got a couple small kids. I mean, you've got, multiple things happening. We already talked a little bit about, kind of your routine and the why behind it. I mean, you said you wanted to be around for your kids as long as possible. So for you, what gets you started in all this and what keeps you going? Is it literally the conversation you have with yourself of, if I don't go to the gym, like you said, this is going to impact, my long-term health? Because that's a tough conversation in the short term, especially for those that aren't self-motivated or aren't, doing something that you're doing. A lot of guys that listen to the show are sitting at a desk for 8-9 hours. They have a long commute. Yeah. They're not motivated, right? They need motivation. They need to be pushed. And so, those are the type of guys I want to reach and that need the help,
Yeah. I think it's different for everybody. I'm intrinsically and extrinsically motivated. So I want to be really healthy. I want to live the longest life possible because I just feel like I have so much to accomplish. And I want to be healthy and around for my kids. I'm almost 40. My kids are 3 and 5. So we didn't have kids young, sort of normal these days, but a little later in life. And so, I'll be in my 50s by the time they're, leaving for college, whatever. I want to still be able to run around and play sports with my kids. So I want to stay in shape for that. And be healthy for the long term. I also, on the extrinsic side, I don't know what the right word is for that, but on the outside, a couple things there too. I love doing it because of the accolades that come and because I know I can inspire other people. And quite frankly, I want to look good. I think people BS about that and they're like, oh, it's just all about being healthy. Like for me, yes, I want to be healthy. I also like being at the party with all the other parents and being, the most in shape dad there because most of them don't work out very much. And I go every day and wow, that guy's 40 and he's still in great shape. Like I'm as strong because I lift regularly as I was when I was 25. And I'm pretty proud of that fact. I like that. And I want to keep doing that. That's something that motivates me as well. I want to look good at the pool and the beach and I'm happily married. I'm not, trying to date anybody, but that's just for me. That not everybody thinks that way, which is cool. You got to find your own personal motivation and what's going to drive you to get there and keep that why, that purpose, that motivation in mind when you're in those tough, lazy situations. You've worked all day and you're like, I really don't feel like it. Connect back to that purpose. My friend, I don't know if you know Ben Killoy, who is a Marine veteran. And when I met him, he was in not very good shape. But since then, he joined a group fitness program and has been working out a ton. And one of the things I love that he says whenever he posts about going to the gym is that he's making a deposit in the bank of tomorrow, right? So you don't get those benefits right away today, but you think about putting money in a savings account or investing in the stock market. You can't do much with it right now, but the more you put in, it grows and grows and pays dividends down the line. And it's the same thing with health and fitness, I think, too. The good decisions you make today will pay off for you tomorrow. And so he always talks about making that investment in the bank of tomorrow. And I like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think for a lot of guys just getting restarted, first of all, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be sexier to the opposite sex or the same sex even. Right, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. There's nothing wrong with posing in front of the mirror with your shirt off.
Good, because I do that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I do it on occasion. But, I think people do. They tend to think that that's not cool to post about that. No, it's about my kids or it's about my long-term health. And like, I don't want to hear what you think, I want to hear. Just what's your driver? I mean, let's really get to the bottom of this. If you really, really want to look amazing because you were the fat kid your whole life, there's nothing wrong with that. That's your driver. That's your why, and you have to go with it. And a lot of guys just getting restarted because a lot of guys, let's face it, they were, a lot of them were athletes either in high school or sometimes college. And then, life gets in the way, kids, that whole thing. And there's that 20-year period where you just put on weight, basically. Your diet goes to hell. And they want to get that back, that feeling of confidence and sexiness and all that. They want to move better. They want to be strong again. And they're not celebrating, like, this is coming directly from something that I read that you wrote, is people don't celebrate the small victories, right? And they're like, oh man, I'm still way off. I'll never reach my goal. I'm still 40 pounds overweight. But they don't look at hey man, I just lost 4 pounds in the last week. And that's big,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think you got to set the big goals, but then figure out what the milestones are along the way, and find that accountability group, whatever it is, and celebrate those small wins. Be grateful for those moments. Losing the 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds, lifting a little bit more on the bench press, whatever it is, celebrate the small victories and enjoy the journey along the way. Cause it's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. But if it was easy, it wouldn't be fulfilling. You'll feel so much better when you get to the top, if you struggle along the way. And so I try to embrace that too.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate your time here. I know you're a super busy guy, and I've loved our conversation today. So where do you want people to find out more about you and what you do?
Well, I'm all over social media. LinkedIn and Instagram are probably the best places to go connect with me and follow me, depending on where you spend your time. Andy Storch, Storch. I have a personal website as well, andystorch.com, and it should connect there to everything I have, both of my podcasts, as well as me on social media. But connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow me on Instagram, message me, let me know you heard me on the Fit Dad Nation podcast, and that you are living intentionally, following your dreams, and getting in shape. I love to hear those things, and keep rocking.
Yeah, man. Awesome. This has been fantastic. I can't wait to get this out and into the community. So appreciate it. And we'll talk soon.
All right, cool. Thanks, Steve. This is awesome.
Yep. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, if you want more information, check out the Fit Dad Basecamp group on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by fitdadnation.com. Until next time, keep kicking ass and taking the next step. You can do this, Dad.